I'm asked all the time, okay, let's be real, it's occasional at best, but that sounds better for the video, in what ways does the fan remake Sonic Project 06 change or update the gameplay from the original game? When playing them casually, the two can feel pretty similar. Same levels, mostly the same abilities, same characters, etc., especially if you haven't played the original game in a while. But what about in the context of speedrunning? In that environment, it's standard to utilize every aspect of the game to go as fast as possible, including glitches and exploits, and it's no secret that the original 06 has a bunch of those. So how much do the two versions diverge in that sense? That answer is what Nick867 and I sought to find by racing Sonic 06 against P06. Nick is a world record holder for many categories of the retail version, and I, well, yell really loudly on YouTube about how I play P06 a lot. Since the fan remaster doesn't contain a story mode, our race begins when entering Sonic's Wave Ocean in the Trial Select, with the goal being to beat every stage on the list, and ends when hitting the goal ring in Tails' Wave Ocean, with all upgrades available in both games collected beforehand. So, let's get started. 3, 2, 1... Let's go! Wave Ocean begins on the P06 side with a short automated section running through a loop, then water sliding to the beach. While this is happening, we swap to Sonic's Blue Gem, an item that uses some of the energy in the action gauge, which is essentially our mana bar, to allow him to dash forward with a burst of speed. His spin kick ability can maintain his current speed, so our fastest movement option is to use the Blue Gem followed by 2 spin kicks, in which time the action gauge will refill enough to use the gem again if we need it, as long as we're on the ground. This is our main method of movement throughout P06, but depending on the situation, such as having another gem equipped, we use the spin dash instead, which has its Adventure 1 property of being spammable to maintain top speed. After the second water sliding section, we jump over the invisible wall on the left and onto the peninsula underneath the lighthouse, where we grab a gauge up capsule, fully replenishing our action gauge on the spot. Now is when we get a little silly. P06 has an interesting quirk when jumping against slanted terrain, as it gives us a bunch more height than it would normally, kind of like a slope jump, but against a wall. The beach has a short slanted invisible wall around it, so you don't just run off into the water and die, so we utilize this by blue gemming into it, jumping, jump dashing, then very quickly bound attacking and homing attacking to the shield item on the island across the pond. In the remake, there's some added tech where Sonic can do 2 jump dashes by using the bound attack after the first one. Also for the speedrun, we use the legacy jump dash type that's been implemented, which is much faster than the original jump dash and is influenced by Sonic's current direction. Back to the stage, we do some more standard movement with the blue gem, hop on a rail, bounce over a rock, then head to the whale chasing set piece where we switch to Tails. The action gauge serves as our flight meter when playing as him, and costs more to ascend versus maintaining it. We can exploit this by feathering the fly button, allowing Tails to fly higher and farther than he could normally at the cost of not ascending as quickly, and this can be used to go from where we start as Tails all the way to the island with the switch on it without stopping. One more ascent up to it, and after a short cutscene, we enter the Mach Speed section. In the original game, which I'll refer to as Retail or Retail 06 from now on, Sonic starts in the same automation as P06 that he's able to break out of, because for some reason Sonic's collision check is larger than any other character's, which allows him to act before the dash panel sends him anywhere. And... what? So, from what I understand, scripted sequences, such as this loop, are actually homing attack targets in Retail, and when Sonic initiates a homing attack, all he does is choose a direction, then accelerates forward until he hits it. Yes, this means he could accelerate infinitely if he didn't hit anything. So Nick is able to set the blue guy at this specific angle to force a whiff on the loop target, which zooms him across the entire level, bonking into this cliff and landing in Shadow section. Though it's unused level design in Sonic's version, there's still collision, so Nick is able to navigate this section and use the Sky Gem, which works like a grappling hook in both games, to get from this part of the map over to where Tails would normally hit the switch. Then Sky Gem once more to the gate where the trigger box is active to enter the Mach Speed section. P06 gets a bit of a saving grace in the load times. Since Nick is playing off a 360, he has the original 15-ish second ones with the game installed on the hard drive, whereas mine are about 2 to 3, so that's nice. While P06 has a superior Mach Speed controls, Retail sections can be just as fast when put in the right hands. So even with the load times, Retail 06 comes out ahead after the opening stage. Moving on from the beach paradise, Dusty Desert is pretty unique between the two versions. In Retail, the fastest way to move with Sonic and the Princess is to jump dash spam, utilizing the special shield ability to walk on the sand. P06 also uses jump dashes, but of course the legacy type makes Sonic go super fast, and we have an additional tool in the anti-gravity slide. In the remake, the slide functions like a roll in which Sonic gains speed when going faster downhill and loses it faster when going uphill, and it can also maintain speed from other sources such as a light dash like the spin kick. So in In Retail, the fastest way to go through the dunes is to take advantage of the openness of the level and immediately go left. And after doing a bunch of jump dashes on the sand, Nick reaches a loop where he performs another loop launch, sending him just outside the wall running section with the corkscrew. Conversely, P06 follows the main path to the right side of the area, grabbing some newly placed speed shoes and using that buff speed to launch off a slope to the corkscrew instead. The two games finish out the same by taking the rainbow ring following the loops, hitting a spring to the wall jump section that ignores the tower climb below, then running straight to the goal ring. Here's a fun fact for you. In Retail 06, the sand is just retextured water, and in some spots, if you fall through it, you can hear water splashes before Sonic and Elise kick the bucket. Does that work? Where are you going?
I like the fuse, he's a rocket and he's ready to go, cause now the countdown has started and he's ready to blow.
Oh, the opening snowboard section of Eggman's base is quite similar here, though in Retail, Nick has to make sure to hold forward as the snowboard won't move regardless of the angle of the slope otherwise. P06 gets a nice bonus in not having to do that, plus also maintaining top speed via the new kick dash move by pressing the spin dash button repeatedly. If Nick jumps on a scripted ramp but lands before the sequence finishes, Sonic will keep its speed. This is due to the jumps working in Retail by just giving Sonic a bunch of speed and sending him airborne. In Section 2, P06 uses the blue gem spin kick strat to make a way across the ice bridge, bound attack to hit a switch, fly through a canyon with tails to hit another switch, then finish the level with Sonic, saving a few seconds at the end by using a blue gem to launch off a rock and get a bunch of air up to the goal ring. Or that's what should have happened anyway, so instead I had to use the sky gem to get up to the platform. In Retail, Nick takes advantage of the level layout being a giant circle by clipping through the first set of lasers and blue gemming to the end of the stage. Sometimes it looks so easy. It's a good time to mention that the action gauge, you know, the thing that limits Sonic's use of the gems, yeah, that never decreases in Retail 06, so Nick can abuse their powers to his heart's content, whereas some of the levels in P06 rely on good resource management to take advantage of the gems as much as possible. Now we enter the fiery metropolis that is Crisis City, which begins with more snowboarding. So after a quick 360, on P06's side, we head into Section 2, which has a few differences even though it's pretty linear. Rail targeting can be weird sometimes in both games, which is what happened to Nick after the beginning of Section 2, forcing him to restart it and giving me a bit of an advantage after lagging behind for the first 3 stages. It wasn't for long though, as he did this as a recovery. I have no clue how he was able to target a rail that was that far below him, but it was pretty cool. Both games have methods to cross the first big gap to avoid some rail grinding and automation. In P06, we accomplished this through blue gem slope jumping off a tiny piece of terrain that's sticking out of the side of the platform. Unfortunately, in this run I jumped a little early, not getting the height I needed, so I had to quickly switch to the purple gem, which gives Sonic an extra jump, and use my second jump dash to homing attack to the rail across the chasm. While Nick could also use the purple gem to cross this gap, which famously shrinks Sonic down and allows him to jump infinitely, that's pretty slow. So instead, he throws a sky gem, then uses the green gem's tornado to stall himself in the air as it lands on the other side, pulling him to the rail way more quickly. This is a key difference between Retail and P06's sky gems. The Retail version remains active even if switching to another one, whereas it's canceled if the same thing's done in the remake. Both ways have their advantages and disadvantages, like what you see here in Retail versus if you threw it in a bad direction in P06, you can cancel out of it. Regardless, after a bit of automation, the 06s deviate yet again. In the fan project, Sonic is able to cross another chasm through using the blue gem and purple gem in tandem, with the purple gem getting upgraded by the enemies we defeat to gain access to 2 extra jumps. This is a reintroduced mechanic in P06 that was lost during Retail's development, the gem level up system. Enemies in both games drop energy cores that fly into the character, which fill up a small bit of the action gauge, but in P06's case also fill up Sonic's maturity meter, which you can think of as the gem's experience bar. After collecting 3 cores with a gem equipped, it'll level up, then another 3 will max it out. The purple gem gains an additional jump per level, and works in real time, so Sonic doesn't have to land on the ground or anything to gain the next jump if it does so. On Retail 06's side, Nick again uses the sky gem to launch himself over to the loop, but to get a good angle, he has to run off the platform and into the chasm. He ended up throwing the gem too low, and I must say he does this incredibly, improvises using the green gem to stall himself in the air until the sky gem despawns, in which case he was able to throw another one against the wall, pulling him back up to the platform. I showed it in White Acropolis, but in both games, if Sonic throws a sky gem against a wall, he gets a huge burst of speed into the air. It's not as severe in P06 as it is in Retail, and also in P06 if your angle is bad, it can spike you downward instead. But it's a great tool to have for those oh shit moments like this one. Anyway, Nick instead opts to follow the level design rather than try the trick again. But sadly, 06 decides to be 06 for a moment, leading to a death. And the worst part, Nick's route didn't grab any checkpoints, so he has to play the whole section again. This was a massive advantage for me, but anything can happen, so let's continue on. Section 3 in PO6 is what I deem to be a pinnacle example of high-speed platforming. It's not the fastest Sonic's ever gone, but it's still quick, has a great amount of flow, and feels very Sonic-y jumping on and through pieces of debris. It's so good. This section normally ends by transforming into Super Sonic with the Rainbow Gem, an unused item from retail which you can get in PO6 by earning all the S ranks in Sonic's story. The transformation takes 3 seconds to play out and kills all of our speed, so anytime we use Super Sonic, it has to save more time than base Sonic would overall. This is why we don't use it in Wave Ocean's Mach Speed. As that section relies mostly on automation and cutting corners, Super Sonic's greater top speed isn't as useful there, unlike Crisis Cities where it's just a straight line. The invincibility helps to not get pot shot too. A unique thing happened in this run though. I hit the gem button at the same moment Sonic hit the dash panel, which takes priority. So the game bugs out for a minute, showing the transformation camera without Sonic actually transforming. So as a backup, on the third chain jump against the truck, I canceled the sequence, transformed into Super, then jump dashed back onto the chain jump trigger to continue the automation into the next part of the stage. A neat trick, but also a bit of a tease for something we'll see in Retail 06 later. Getting back on track, Section 3 in Retail isn't much different compared to a casual run, and Nick doesn't have the luxury of Super Sonic for Mach Speed, so he has to be careful to not take too much damage. On top of the already stiff controls, in Retail, Mach Speed Sonic gets hurt from coming into contact with any object. And on top of that, some objects in this section that are thrown around by the tornado will break apart, some into a million little pieces, all of which damage the poor hedgehog. This part of the stage is infamous, but thankfully Nick was able to navigate it mostly unscathed. Okay, now that's just cheating. Even though he died, before the death fade out, a character's body can still hit event triggers. And since he was so close to the goal ring, Sonic's corpse just flew right into it, completing the stage anyway. God, this game is beautiful. It's actually a good thing too, because dying here sets the tornado further back on the results screen, reducing lag. Time to dash into my favorite stage of the run, Flame Core. While so much of my affection comes from the music, with its latter track being my favorite in the franchise, the movement in PO6 complements the level design so well. Both sections are pretty linear, but especially with the blue gem, there's a great rhythm to it with some fun corner cuts along the way. I even use a newer strat on the lava river, taking advantage of a maxed out blue gem, which for whatever reason, when activated on the lava, causes Sonic to ignore its sinking properties and run at full speed on it. It's freaking sick. Section 2 is a tad more mundane, with the Knuckles part that utilizes all of his new combat prowess in the remake to glide into 5 orbs that Sonic could hit anyway if we played as him. Awesome. Retail is fairly tame too. A spin dash clip through a door here, a sky gem out of bounds there, a spin kick out of bounds there, and a sky gem out of bounds here gets Nick to the goal ring. Hard to believe that 3 out of bounds clips in the same stage is tame in this context. Radical Train in Retail does a lot of the same things as Flame Core, using door clips and sky gems for most of it. The big loop at the beginning is taken advantage of by placing Sonic off the normal path, which gives him the speed from the scripting, but then is thrown off into a wall where Nick can use a sky gem to land on the platform a little faster. He also only has to hit the first switch to save the civilian train, as Sonic's fast enough to get to Section 2 before it blows up on the other parts. PO6, on the other hand, isn't so lucky. Sonic actually has to save the civilians all 3 times like he's a hero or something, using the blue and purple gems along with a little sky gem to navigate the level in between. And, of course, a transformation into Super Sonic for the Mach Speed section. Part 2 is pretty much the same. I just don't have to worry about the train cars that blow up during the chase. The second and final Princess stage isn't as thrilling as the first, even with 2 sections. Part 1 is mostly automation, so both games navigated in a similar fashion, with a clip out during the log set piece for Retail, saving quite a bit of time as it's pretty long, especially in PO6's case. Section 2 has a little variance. In PO6, we use multiple different routes all combined together to go as fast as possible. Starting on the low route, jumping to a rail on the middle route, going back to the low route, then hitting the springs at the end of the top route to get to the goal ring, all while watching the action gauge carefully to not run out of shield energy and fall into a watery grave. In Retail, Sonic's action gauge actually works properly for this playstyle, but doesn't drain as quickly nor have the activation costs like PO6. So the best method is to just pitch down the camera and walk to the end. It ends up being the fastest route because this section has a lot of lag. Time for the big one, Kingdom Valley. Section 1 uses the same route in both games, with PO6 being quicker by virtue of Sonic actually being faster and having more Sonic-like physics for slope launches and stuff. Shows how remarkably good this level design is with its compactness without feeling claustrophobic to accommodate 06's slower speed and openness to interweave between multiple routes to find the fastest path through the level. Oh, I'm keeping take 1. That's a wild sentence. And P06 amplifies this with its movement system. Damn near perfection for Sonic, I must say. Switching to Silver in Section 2, we used 2 of his new P06 upgrades, the Lotus of Resilience and ESP mode, to do some really long teleport dashes to the end of his part, where we switch back to Sonic and ride the Eagle to Section 3. In Retail, Sonic gives a giant middle finger to Silver and takes the Thanos approach, just doing the section himself. He's got his own story, it's fine to skip him here. The beginning of Section 3 is navigated in basically the same way, except that Retail can jump off the Eagle early and do some green gem sky gem shenanigans to skip the first tower. But all that changes when we get to the castle set piece. Both Retail and P06 are able to skip it, but go about it very differently. In P06's case, we start by running through the beginning of Section 3 with the Rainbow Gem equipped, and while that's technically a little slower than the Blue Gem, we want to level the Rainbow Gem up to max. Outside of Mach speed sections, Supersonic gains new abilities with each gem level, getting increased speed and jump height at level 2, then unlocking the Arrow of Light at level 3. With it, Supersonic can do this move to get a huge dash forward, which is critical for the skip and costs the entire action gauge. When transformed, Supersonic can't utilize the other gems, as since it's intended to be a weaker version of the yellow guy by lead developer Chaos X, he needs to keep the Rainbow Gem equipped along with rings to maintain the state. Since the gems are easily swappable and offer more extreme powers versus the jack-of-all-trades Supersonic is, it's much better to stay in Sonic's base form to have access to them. Except for here, as he makes the skip faster and we have to transform into him anyway for the Mach speed section. So, with a fully powered up Rainbow Gem and over 50 rings, we bounce Sonic off of the first rope, homing attack our way to the rope across from it, use both jump dashes to destroy the first tower, then Blue Gem jump to the second tower, transform into Supersonic, jump, which gets the extra jump height from leveling up the gem, then perform the Arrow of Light to reach the platform beyond the set piece. For Retail, the setup starts the same as P06, except Nick instead grabs the Eagle circling above the spring to the automation, jumps off of it, uses the green gem to destroy the tower and stall himself in the air, lands on the tower as it's falling, which you can't do in P06, then homing attacks to the invisible chain jump trigger, which is still there even though the tower is gone. And after the chain jumps, spin dash clips through the door. For all of their differences, I'm happy to say that both Retail 06 and P06 are awesome speed games with really cool tricks. Speaking of similarities, the final Mach speed section is basically the same, except that we enact peak fiction in P06's case. The writer said to use that to connect with the youth. The penultimate stage of the run is appropriately one of the toughest. When playing P06 at a high level, or imitating high level play in my case, Aquatic Base is an incredibly linear stage with several tight jumps to skip set pieces when possible. It all comes down to the movement, and every second counts. The roughest part is the post-knuckles section, where again we use his amazing new combat to glide over everything and reach the switch. I know it's going to be updated, I just love poking fun at it. And using the gems, we can avoid riding the ball. And if you want to go really fast, only use the Blue Gem. This method requires landing very precisely on a laser pillar right after a previous dash. We have to let go of the control stick at the right time to slow Sonic down in the air, then pray we land on the pillar to then Blue Gem off it and through the door. Oh, and for Retail, Aquatic Base is merely a suggestion. Like Flame Core, Sky Gemming and Spin Dash clipping destroys this stage, bypassing Tails' section entirely in Part 1, and of course skipping Knuckles in Part 2. But we're not done yet. Tails has his own version of Wave Ocean, and it's kinda boring. Though the Fox is quite fun to play as in the project, the level isn't really designed with his flight in mind, so he just kinda sails over everything with little effort, way more slowly than Sonic does. In Retail, some dash panel scripting can be used yet again to get a ton of speed, fling Tails over some loops, then quickly fly to keep it even longer and reach the rail right before the boardwalk. Then after some standard platforming, we reach the part where we played as the yellowish guy in Sonic's Wave Ocean, which in P06 we accomplished the exact same way by feathering our flight over the ocean to go straight to the goal ring. In Retail, Nick is actually able to throw out a dummy ring bomb and stand on it for a moment to get some flight back, as unlike P06, it's timed and doesn't refresh until he stands on something like Sonic Adventure. This is absolutely hilarious and a great way to end the run. Unfortunately for Nick, I had finished the story about 5 minutes ago, just as he was entering Aquatic Base. I wasn't sure how big of a factor the load times were to the outcome of the race, so just for fun, I calculated the load's remove time for each of us. P06's run was approximately 24 minutes and 15 seconds, while Retail's run was 23 minutes and 58 seconds. While the loads only accounted for a minute and a half in my run, it was over 7 minutes for Nick. Considering the mistakes he made, Retail easily clears P06 in completion time. Thank goodness the loads were on my side. This race also gave me the idea that I think P06 could allow the characters to stand on more objects in the game. Things like the guillotine poles and Kingdom Valley towers, they just slide right off them normally, but could potentially be used for some fun routing like it is in Retail. Nothing crazy like standing on your own bombs though. Nick is an incredible runner and a very friendly dude. I had an absolute blast doing this race with him. And guess what? Both games games have 2 other character stories available, so if you want to see us race in Shadow and Silver stories, be sure to let me know in the comments. Thanks to Nick867 once more for the idea to do this, and for actually doing the race with me. You can find his socials linked in the description, and thanks to Reverie, another Retail 06 and P06 speedrunner, for fact-checking my analysis of the Retail speedrun to make sure the info was correct. I would have sent it to Nick, but I wanted this video to be a surprise for him. Shout out to the Stelmo crew as well, who support what I do through subscribing on Twitch, and thanks to ChaosX for the awesome Sonic 06 and Sonic P06 renders used in the thumbnail. And finally, thanks to you so much for watching, have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.